What makes a man unshakable? When the world begs him to react. They say the crowd roared. The entire amphitheater rose. In thunderous applause, hands clapping, voices soaring, energy, pulsing like a wave. All except one man. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, still unmoved. He didn't clap, not out of defiance, not out of pride, but because he refused to let the moment decide who he was. While others gave themselves to the noise, he remained intact. He wasn't against the world. He simply refused to react for it. And that's the part most never notice. A man's weakness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's dressed in smiles. Sometimes it looks like kindness. Sometimes it claps just to belong. Not because it's true, but because silence feels unbearable. That's when something begins to shift. Not in her, in the atmosphere, around you. She won't flinch, she won't question, she won't even blink, but she'll feel it, like a chord, slightly out of tune, like presence, fading without a sound. And when silence returns, it won't sound like peace. It'll sound like something missing you, quietly. So no, this isn't a lesson. It's a mirror. Let's see what cracks first. Weakness is rarely loud. It doesn't shout. It hums beneath the surface of composure. What disappears first is not the love. It's the edge, the energy that once resisted, now folds. The man who once held gravity now seeks it, and she doesn't leave because something went wrong. She leaves because something stopped vibrating. It's not absence she notices. It's the presence that no longer asserts. A man begins to weaken the moment his boundaries become suggestions, when his tone becomes careful, when he starts explaining things that don't require explanation. This collapse is almost invisible because it wears the face of kindness, of understanding, of patience. But underneath, there is fear, fear of disruption, fear of losing something that was never meant to be owned. What she feels is not a lack of affection, it's the lack of form. Masculine strength isn't aggression, it's definition. To exist with sharp lines, to take up space without apology, to remain still without seeking confirmation from every glance. When that definition fades, so does the attraction, because all connection, whether spoken or silent, is a dance between form and freedom. The moment one dissolves, the other retreats, and no words are needed, because what's lost is not attention, it's tension. But tension dies fastest when strength is traded for softness. Some confuse softness with safety. They believe to be gentle is to be good, to yield is to be wise. But when softness becomes the default, respect dies, because respect is not given to what bends for everything. It's given to what bends for nothing unless it chooses to. There's a kind of man who offers understanding before it's asked, who apologizes for existing too strongly, who fears his own weight and so dissolves into pleasantries. This doesn't inspire closeness. It inspires quiet doubt. She won't argue with him. She won't test him. She'll simply place him in the category of men she can move. And once that placement is made, the game has changed. Not because she's cruel, but because she's wired to trust structure, not softness without spine. To be calm is power. To be quiet is strength. But to erase yourself for comfort, that is the slowest form of vanishing. Not all weakness is emotional. Some wear the mask of reason. There is a kind of man who always says the right thing, always calm, always composed, but she feels nothing. Not because he's wrong, but because he's missing. Words without presence are just noise, dressed in grammar. Logic without weight is forgettable. There's a difference between being stable and being absent behind the eyes. A woman doesn't need perfection. She needs orientation, not answers, but a pulse that says, I am here, I know where I stand. Not every silence is peace. Not every solution is power. Sometimes, and the most calculated man is also the most hollow, and she can tell, not by what he says, but by what isn't alive when he speaks. Not every man who stays is strong. Sometimes the one who stays the longest is simply the one who can't imagine himself without her. He calls it loyalty, but it's fear, elegantly dressed. Fear of starting over. Fear of silence. Fear of being no one when no one is looking back. A man without fear can walk away, not because he wants to, but because he knows he still exists. When he does, the moment staying becomes a survival instinct. Dignity begins to decay. Love built on fear will never earn respect. She doesn't feel safe with a man who can't leave what no longer sees him. Because how can someone protect what he's too afraid to walk away from? But some men don't collapse. They simply disappear while standing. He didn't fall. He faded. Not in a dramatic collapse, but in small concessions, tiny edits to his tone, quiet hesitations in his choices, apologies for desires he never dared to own. He became pleasant, predictable, palatable, and then invisible, not to the world, but to himself. A man can live decades, responding, adjusting, pleasing, adapting, and one day realize he's become a mirror, reflecting what others need, but no longer generating anything real within. This is the final weakness, not failure, not fear, but forgetting. Forgetting the direction, forgetting the weight of one's own stance, forgetting that power was never loud, but it was always there when a man remembered who he was. Without this, no tactic matters, no silence, no posture, no boundary can hide a presence that's been hollowed out from within. The world may still clap, she may still stay, but if the man is gone, what's left to respect? If she can feel it before you do, you were already late. If silence makes you doubt yourself, you were never grounded. If your presence needs approval to exist, you never had it. You don't fix this by performing better. You fix this by remembering. Remembering you were never meant to beg for belonging. Not in her life, not in this world. Strength isn't found in the moment you win her back. It's found in the moment you no longer need to. Some men click away. The rest stay because they felt something they couldn't explain, but knew was real. If that was you, you'll know where to find us. If something in this made you pause, let the silence speak for itself. A like tells the algorithm what words cannot.